Everyone to Iowa City Noon Rotary. It's great to see everyone today. If you haven't already, if you could just take a second and please sign in the chat button so we know who's with us. And we like to start every meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. So if everyone could just take 1 second to unmute yourself. And we're going to share the American flag here in a second. Great. And if everyone could please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the
United States of America
and to
to
the
republic
for
which
which it
stands
stands,
one nation under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty
liberty and
and
justice for all.
justice for all. Now we're going to have some Zoom tips. Our resident Zoom expert, Devin, if we could call on you to provide us some fun new Zoom tips.
Yes, expert only by sheer weight of experience after having done 50 of these. But you all have done 50 of these too. So quick reminders, up and pick your view up in the top right. If you're on a computer, the little grid thing, you can pick between speaker gallery, or you take the little slider and see how much of our speaker versus the slide you want to see. Always a good thing to be able to do, especially when our speaker's talking. Check out the reactions tab to raise your hand if you have questions, if you are a guest or a visitor, or if you want to add and sprinkle a little spice of flavor in there with little emojis. And I will also say, update your Zoom client regularly to be the most secure, and also so that you have access to all of the latest and greatest stuff. And finally, I will do one more plug for throwing your name in the chat so that we can get the attendance. And you can also, here's a tip that you may not know. If you go down to the Zoom or down to the chat thing, there's a little 2, and then it should say everyone typically, but you can track down an individual name and chat with somebody. It's like whispering at the meeting, except that nobody else can hear you whispering. So back to you, President Eric.
Great, thank you, Devin. So now we have a chance to use our skills. We love to see visiting Rotarians and new faces every week. So if you're either one of those, a visiting Rotarian or a guest, if you could please click raise hand, and we'd like to introduce you. And when we introduce you, if you could just take yourself off mute and just tell us who you are real quick. And I see Kelly Drown. We'll start with you, Kelly.
Great, thanks, Eric. Yes, my guest is a second timer. Emma Walls is a colleague of Devin's and mine from the University of Iowa Center for Advancement. I will have her unmute herself and introduce maybe the discipline that you support, Emma.
Yes, thank you so much, Kelly. I am the Assistant Director of Development for the College of Law here at the University of Iowa Center for Advancement, and thrilled to be a new Iowan as well as new to the UICA.
Great, welcome, Emma. Thanks for joining us today. Ryan Bell, you've got your hand raised.
Yep, I have 2 guests today. Technically, Missy Forbes is still a guest, but she is here and has gone through much of the process of membership, and we haven't heard any bad stuff yet, which is awesome because Missy's a rock star, and we will soon be hopefully welcoming her into our club. So you want to say hi real quick, Missy?
Hey, thanks again for having me. I'm excited to be here, and hopefully no skeletons come out before I get like the official word. So fingers crossed.
Absolutely. My other guest is, we needed another Ryan in this club, so I hunted one down. Ryan Lavadier is a good buddy of mine. He's an accountant by trade, but probably one of the best water skiers in the county. So if you need water skiing tips or tricks, he's your guy. And he's also got a lot of other cool skills that he could bring to our table, including the love of planting trees, which is how we sort of stumbled upon our connection to Rotary being a good fit for him. Ryan, you want to say hi?
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. Again, I'm another Ryan Lavadier. Been living in Iowa City for about 5 years, and I think it's a very cool place, and just wanted to get in touch with Rotary. I was a junior Rotarian in high school and just always thought it'd be something to get involved with.
Great. Well, special welcome both to Ryan and to Missy. Thank you for joining us. Steve Schomburg, you've got your hand raised.
Yes, my guest is Bill Furlong, and I also wanted to do a shout out to Bill. He was featured in one of our premier farm magazines called Farm Futures, about an innovative farm management process that he's involved in with some partners. So way to go, Bill.
Thank you, Steve. Great. Yeah, welcome, Bill. And one of our goals, not just for our club, but for Rotary Internationals, to increase our membership this year. We do great work in our community and around the world, but with more members, we can widen our reach and help more people. So thanks to our new guests joining us today, and we encourage everyone to bring a new member to join us throughout the year. So now we're on to announcements. Hopefully everyone gets my weekly emails. If you're not getting a weekly email from me, let me know and we'll double check your email address. Our Rotary board just met this week on Tuesday, and kind of looking at the COVID numbers, how they're still going in the wrong direction with not just COVID, but Delta. And knowing that a lot of our members have young kids, maybe they're immune compromised, they cannot get vaccinated themselves. And we looked at our contract with the Highlander, and there's several dates this fall that the Highlander was not available for us. And considering we don't meet on Thanksgiving, which is Thursday, we typically don't meet Christmas and New Year's week. So we made the tough decision. We just want to be safe for everyone. We want you to be safe and your families to be safe. So we decided to postpone the return to in-person, and we're just going to stay on Zoom through year end, December 31st, with the hopes that everything can be better and we can come back in January. But we'll keep you updated as the year progresses. But as of now, you'll see us every Thursday on Zoom through year end. And I want to call on Barb. We've got a great opportunity to get more involved with Rotary leadership. So Barb.
Great, thank you so much, Eric. Well, it's that time of year when we will take nominations, or, I guess if people would like to raise their hand and potentially run for the Rotary board. So just so that you're aware, we have 2 board member positions that will be open. A board term is 3 years long. You have the potential to renew your term once after that, again, but by election. And so if you think you would like to become more involved in our club and be involved in the leadership of our club, we encourage you to consider running for the board. So how do you do that? Well, it's pretty simple. All you need to do is you need to email Eric, our president, with the following information: a sentence about you, a sentence about your involvement in Rotary, and a third about why you want to be on the Rotary board and what you hope to accomplish. Now, here's the big clincher. Pay attention, people. The deadline's today, okay? You got to do it by the end of today if you want to be on the ballot. And so what that also means is that we will be working on the Qualtrics survey that will be your ballot, and that you will receive that probably on Monday of next week, and you will have 1 week and 1 week only to complete the election. So again, if you're interested in serving on the board, please let Eric know by the end of the day today with some information about you. Watch for an election, your ballot via Qualtrics survey, which will come out on Monday, and then you will have until Monday the 11th to complete that, so that on Thursday, the 15th, I think it's the 15th or the 14th or whatever, that's homecoming week. I'm really busy then. But by that Thursday, we will be able to tell you who has been elected to the Rotary board. And so with that, I'll turn it back to you, Eric.
Great. Thank you, Barb. Really want to encourage everyone to consider, if you want to get more involved with Rotary leadership, and kind of see how the club works behind the scenes. This is a great opportunity. I like to tease people, some of the gray hairs I'm getting on my side are not from the Rotary board. They're from the fact that I turned 47 this summer. It wasn't anything to do with the Rotary board, but all kidding aside, it's a great opportunity and we'd love to have your name in consideration. Next announcement, Ryan, do we have any trees to plant next month?
Yeah, thanks for the segue, Eric. I'll just drop the sign up in the chat box here so you guys can all click it and sign up if you are able to help in any capacity, whether holding a camera and snapping photos or digging holes and sweating profusely. That's my plan. But everybody can help. It's October 23rd. We'll start at 9 a.m. If you can't make it on time, come late, just kind of swing by and say hi, whatever you want to do. It's going to be pretty, again, a guaranteed beautiful day. So we'll just be out there enjoying the day. Barb can't wait to get her hands dirty, so neither can I. We're going to plant 100 trees that morning. We'll probably be done by 11:30, I'm guessing, depending on how many show up. But again, I'll drop the sign up form in the chat, and we look forward to seeing you all there.
Great, thank you, Ryan. Also, some exciting news to share. Within our Rotary Club, we have a local grants committee. And as part of our dues that we pay, part of that money is invested back in our community. And our local grants community funds nonprofit organizations for their great work up to $500 per project. And if you remember, I think it was 2 or 3 weeks ago, we had a program on a new nonprofit called the Compeer program. And what they do is they match community volunteers in one-on-one intentional friendships with adults who are receiving mental health treatment, kind of giving them a friend and a support system. And they gave a great program a few weeks ago, and they applied. They're trying to get the word out for the great work they do and to get more volunteers to work with the mental health community. And our local grants committee decided to grant them a $500 grant. So something you can feel good about. Beyond the tree planting and polio and everything else that we do, every year we're picking a handful of local nonprofits to receive up to $500 to strengthen our community. So just wanted to share that with our club as well. Does anyone else have any other announcements at all? Not seeing any. With that, we're ready to go on to our program, and I'd like to introduce Devin to introduce our speaker to us today. Devin?
Yeah. Yep, so just down the road from where I am, I think, are you at Kent Park today, Brad? Yep, he's out at Kent Park. His office is out there. He's Johnson County Conservation. He's the conservation. Brad Freihof is the conservation program manager for the Johnson County Conservation Board. He served as a naturalist for the department from 2002 to 2014, and then transitioned to the conservation program manager position, where he oversees the conservation education program and special projects, including the trails. So Brad, thanks so much for joining us out here. And yeah, looking forward to hearing what you have to say.
Well, thank you, Devin. I appreciate you guys. There's a lot of influential people on here. I feel like I'm in control of the kingdom. So we're going to try to get through a lot of information on our trails program pretty quickly, because I don't want to run over you guys' valuable time. There's a lot of valuable time on this crew looking at it. So I'm going to share my screen. And if you guys can give me a thumbs up, does everybody see that? All right, perfect. In 2014, the Johnson County Conservation Board took over the trails program for Johnson County. Prior to that, it kind of floundered around. It didn't really find a home. Some trails were being done by secondary roads. Conservation did some. The Board of Supervisors were doing some projects. So we really needed to find a home for it. So in 2014, we took that over. The Conservation Board received some funds from the Board of Supervisors. My position was created. A lot of work had already been done by the Johnson County Trails Advisory Committee. They had a lot of plans, but trails really hadn't got off the ground very far. We still needed to go from planning and ideas to construction. So that's where the Conservation Board came in, and we've done a lot of work on projects since then. So let me see if I can this thing to advance. There we go. Sorry there. There we go. So let's look at some of the trail projects that we've already completed and some of the ones that are taking priority for the county. So in the year 2000, the Johnson County Secondary Roads Program and the Board of Supervisors started the Iowa River Trail segment north of Iowa City. So if you guys can see my cursor, this piece right here that starts at the Butler Street Bridge, or the Butler Bridge, and goes north along Dubuque Street all the way out to North Liberty. Now, one time the Conservation Board completed that all the way to the city limits. And since that time, the city limits have changed with the addition of Liberty High School. And so now the county maintenance stops at 275th Street. So just to the east of where the current Liberty High School is. So that one's been completed. We've also completed the section from the north end of North Liberty out to Mahaffey Bridge, which then gets you access to the Sugar Bottom recreation area and all of the single track trails they have out there. And then the last two we've completed the segment of the Hoover Trail from Ely, or basically the county line, Seven Sisters Road, to Solon. And we've completed one segment of the Clear Creek Trail from Ireland Avenue, just to the west of Tiffin, out to Half Moon Avenue. So that takes us, we've got that much work done, but that means there's more work to do. So in the priorities we've had since the completion of these other projects are the Hoover Trail from Solon to West Branch, the potentially Herbert Hoover Highway Trail from West Branch to Iowa City, and then the Clear Creek Trail from Half Moon Avenue out to FW Kent Park, eventually Oxford, and hopefully to the Amana colonies. So we've got great support for trails. We hope to continue to see those trails as we go along. Let me go to the next slide here. See if I can get this thing to advance. Whoop. Okay, so this is the Dubuque Street Trail. Shows you a little bit of the detail. So from 2000 or 2001, the first segment was completed from the Butler Street Bridge out to West Overlook, which is right here. And then the second segment between West Overlook to 275th Street was completed in 2010 and 11. So we went from here the rest of the way north up to 275th Street. And then the last segment was done from north in front of 275th Street all the way back to the city limits. Fortunately, because there is a lot of traffic on that, the city of North Liberty has annexed that, and now maintenance stops at 275th Street for us. This is the only trail in the county that there is snow removal on. Because this isn't in such a dense housing area, we remove snow for commuters and for youth that may be riding to school at Liberty High. So we do have that. This is the most recently completed trail. This is the Hoover Trail between Ely and Solon. So in Johnson County, this is called the Hoover Trail. As soon as it hits the Lynn County line, the name is converted to the Cedar Valley Nature Trail. And so from Lynn County north all the way to Cedar Falls, it is the Cedar Valley Nature Trail. So this project, we at one point had looked at doing this as one big project. It was very expensive. It was nearly a $6 million project. And so to make grant funding sources work, we broke it into three smaller sections. Phase 1 and phase 2 were completed in 2018. So down here and up here, those were the first two phases. And then phase 3 was just recently completed in 2000. Now, snowmobiles are allowed on phase 1, this section, and between Solon and Polk Avenue, but we do request that they have a minimum of 4 inches of snow and that their tracks are stud free. And then the only thing left to complete on this project is where that little green star is. That is the underpass. Excuse me, I should be right here. That is the underpass under the Ely Road, and we're looking to get that completed hopefully next year. This is a little further breakdown of the the Hoover Trail. This shows the Solon Nature Recreation Area. And if you've been up there, you'll see that there are 2 trails going side by side. We've maintained that. The red line is the Hoover Trail that the county maintains. That's a 10-foot wide concrete surface trail. The yellow dotted line is the North Shore Trail, or Lake McBride Trail, some people call it, which runs from Solon back to Lake McBride State Park. And that's a chipped limestone trail. When we were doing planning for this project, there was a lot of concern because people enjoyed the chipped limestone trail that we were going to remove that. And so we maintained both because some people prefer that soft surface. If they have bad knees or hips, they may not want to run on a concrete trail, but the concrete trail is great for cyclists and other users. So here's a picture. This is the bridge just as you come out of Solon. This is called Mill Creek. This was a historic rail line that went through this area. And when the rail was abandoned, a lot of the materials that were left behind were salvaged, the rails, the timbers, the bridges. There were some old abutments here, but those were so old they had limestone still in them underneath the concrete. And so we removed those and poured all new abutments. This is a single span bridge that goes all the way across, so we don't have any issues with backing up water if there's flood. It actually opened up the waterway significantly. So hopefully we've improved, reduced flooding issues that the city of Solon may have at their water treatment plant or things like that. And this is a very popular trail. We get a ton of use out of Cedar Rapids coming to Solon. If you talk to people in Ely, Dan and Deb's Creamery, if you talk to people in Solon, Big Grove, there's a new bike shop on Main Street in Solon. So we're already seeing some of those advantages of building or investing in these bike trails. Here's one of our rest areas. This is called Gaddis Pond. This was bought from the Gaddis family. So it's a nice area just a few miles outside of Solon where you can stop, take a break, look at a lot of the area. This water all drains eventually into Lake McBride State Park. So it's a nice place for us to see a lot of really cool wildflowers, native plants, and then wildlife that exists in the area. And then this is, I don't have any good photos yet, but this is a rendering of the trailhead that's at the Solon Recreation and Nature area. And this has already changed significantly. If you see where my cursor is up here on the upper left, Solon has now built two things. They've got a new water system here, so a large tank reservoir for their drinking water, and they've also built a large splash pad there for their community. And so obviously the cyclists really enjoy that as well. This is the trailhead. So Profit and Sons, Jay Profit and his company that does a lot of dirt work in the area, excavation, provided the bike repair station. And then we have a lot of our signage to welcome people to the trail. One thing that was essential for this, as well as a lot of these other projects, was the conservation bond that was passed back in 2008. The conservation bond provided $20 million to the conservation board for over 20 years, had to be repaid in 20 years, that we can invest in projects throughout the county. And we think those have been very wisely leveraged with other grant funds either at the federal, state, or local level, and private donations to make a lot of the projects, make them become realities. This is the kiosk that we have at the trailhead at the Solon Nature Recreation Area. Has a map of the city of Solon. Obviously, when we bring these visitors, we build these trails, we want to bring these visitors into our communities. We want them to visit our establishments on Main Street, to go to the eateries, go to the bars, visit our shops and make purchases. And so that's one of the key elements of this, is to bring people to our smaller counties or our smaller communities. We want every community in Johnson County to thrive, right? Although we have a great center with Iowa City and Coralville and North Liberty, we want to make sure that all of the communities within the county thrive. So this is one avenue that we can develop some of that economic opportunity in those communities. We also have a lot of history in Solon with the old stable building, the Dillon's Furrow, which was one of the first roadways plowed between Iowa City and Dubuque. And so there's a lot of cool things on that. And then we talk about the rail system that existed on this rail to trail corridor. It's kind of cool to see that there was a Zephyr rocket at one time, and some of the stopping points it had in Solon and Morris and Oasis. And so that was kind of interesting to see. And then the last thing we have is a map of the Solon Recreation and Nature Area. And so there's a lot of families that come there to do a lot of things, and we want them to be able to find where they're at in that facility. So this is the north section. One thing that is unique is that the north section of this trail is built on property, well, the north and the south end are built on properties that are owned by the Army Corps of Engineers. And so There are easements that we hold on this. For this section from 140th Street North, the Army Corps of Engineer requested or required that we do continue to allow hunting along this trail corridor, because that was a land use that they had long before the trail was even discussed, and they wanted to maintain that. So this goes right along the east side of their property, then comes back under the Ely Road and continues to the south. This is a bridge all the way to the north end. You can see there's a lot of similarities through our bridges. These are all Continental bridges made in Minnesota with US steel by the Contact Company. And so they're great resources we have. They're galvanized or rusted metal, so they're very low maintenance, and they do all have concrete decks. The other great thing about all of the bridges in our trail network is they're all 10-foot wide, and they have a 10-ton weight limit. So if we have an accident or a farmer gets caught in, say, this agricultural field next to the trail, we can come right down that trail with an ambulance or rescue equipment and offer aid to those individuals either using the trail or on adjacent properties. So here they are bringing those prefabricated bridges in. This one is going in over Lingle Creek, which is parallel to the Ely Road. PCI did our work on there, so these were trucked in. The Lingle Creek Bridge is actually a 3-span large bridge. They were brought in 3 segments, bolted together, and then swung in place with 2 large cranes. That was quite the ordeal to see, but it was awesome to see how quickly it went in place. And here it is, swung into place. PCI, they're one of the same companies. They're doing some of the work out here on the interstate interchange. Great company to work with. Large equipment. They were able to come in. They built a road across Lingle Creek, and just as fast as they built it, they took it back out, and you could hardly tell it was even there. So pretty amazing feat there. And then the in-between section, this became a little more difficult. I prefer when we have build trails on private ground or away from the road right-of-way. But sometimes that's not possible. And so sometimes we utilize the road right-of-way. It's can become very crowded because the road right-of-way is meant to transport water, to store snow. And so when we build a trail in there, there's a lot of extras we have to do, extend culverts, build guardrails, retaining walls, things like that. So in this section, if you drive by the Lake McBride storage facility, you'll see a large retaining wall that we had to build to allow the trail to go through that area. And here is the picture of that. So large railing, retaining wall. But we think it's doing a great job. And again, as you drive by there, the biggest thing is there's a lot of use and these users are safe. There have been bike accidents on the Ely Road. There's plenty of car accidents on the Ely Road. And so anything we can do to make it safer is well deserved. So we talked about all of these expensive bridges and all that concrete and railing. And it is a big investment. So when we are spending taxpayer dollars, I'm a Johnson County taxpayer myself. I live in Coralville, so I want to make sure it's well spent. And so when we passed the $20 million conservation bond in 2008, one of the things that we said we would get done is we would leverage those funds, and we were going to try to leverage those funds 1-for-1 wherever possible. That's not always possible, but we work really hard at it. So here are some of the grants. We started, the Hoover Trail started in 2014 and completed in 2020. It was roughly a $6 million project, and we got close. We raised $2 million, $683,000. So we were close there, but didn't quite get to the 50-50. But it was a pretty close read there. And then this was our next project. This is the the Mahaffey Bridge Trail. The Mahaffey Bridge Trail goes from North Liberty up to the Mahaffey Bridge. And again, this is another one that was built in the right-of-way of the Mahaffey Bridge Road. So there were a lot of retaining walls. In some locations, we actually had to bring the trail right next to the road to make it compatible with the terrain without spending multi-millions of dollars building retaining walls or pounding geopiers into the ground to sustain the trail. So this and that south section of the Hoover Trail are both used by snowmobilers as well. So this is a multi-use trail. In the winter months, as I mentioned, the only one that we remove snow from is the Dubuque Street segment of the Iowa River Trail. This segment, we actually encourage the plow drivers to push snow over onto it, because this is one of the few spots where snowmobilers can cross between Solon and North Liberty, Coralville, Iowa City. Otherwise, we have the Coralville Reservoir in the way, and that can be quite dangerous to cross. So this section does have snowmobile use in the winter months, but it also has a lot of use in the summer months. And again, some of the, that was a $2.7 million project. That one kind of grew on us in the midst of construction due to some of the soil conditions we had on site. But we did raise a little over $2 million in grant funds to help us complete that project. So we did well on that one as well. Now, the most recent project, and the one that we're working on right now, is the Clear Creek Trail. This is the first segment of the Clear Creek Trail, which was completed with bond funds and REAP funds. That was completed between Ireland Avenue, which is the one that goes south to Interstate 80, and it goes all the way over to Half Moon Avenue. Now, the Conservation Board only bought 80 acres of this. The other half of it, roughly, we have a perpetual easement on that allows us to bring a trail along Clear Creek and then through the property that we own. It is very nice. Now, we have also purchased a corridor, and I'll show you that in a little bit, that will take us from Half Moon Avenue all the way out to FW Kent Park, with the eventual, maybe in my lifetime, probably not, plan to get it to Oxford and maybe the Amana colonies. And this is just the start of this project. This was the first phase, so it was roughly a $1.2 million project from Ireland Avenue to Half Moon. We got roughly $500,000 to $500,000 in grant funds to help pay for that one. And then this last section, this is the one we're working on right now. This is the corridor from Half Moon Avenue out to FW Kent Park. There were 3 parcels that we had purchased along this route. Those have all been purchased. We are starting the engineering to design phase on that. And we're hoping, fingers crossed, it may be pushed back now, but we would like to start construction in the fall of this next year. We're trying to complete the engineering design and maybe get into late winter, early spring, some of the brush removal to open up some of this corridor. So here's some of the early preliminary design phases that we're looking at. This is the trailhead, or I should call the trail end. I don't know what we want to call it, but this is where we end right now. And so this is a modification of the parking lot at Half Moon Avenue. We will then cross, and we'll go over some ag ground before we have to cross Copi Avenue and the Iowa Interstate Rail Line. Go again on some property that is both agricultural and wooded, and then utilize the road right-of-way of Highway 6 before we enter into Kent Park. And this would be the entry at Kent Park. For those of you that aren't familiar with Highway 6, Highway 6 is a very historic, long-lived road coming through here. And so parts of old 6 still reside within Kent Park. And so one of those is just to the north and east of the current entrance off of Highway 6 of Kent Park. And so the trail will actually come into Kent Park. There will be some kiosks and entry signage to get you in there, but we're really excited to see where that gets us. Now, this project, like the other part of the Clear Creek Trail, is just starting. We've gotten roughly half of the engineering design. I'll be writing a grant the rest of today that's finalizing a grant that is due Friday for some additional funds. But again, that's going to be roughly, could be upwards of $3 million to bring this out to Kent Park or more. We don't have all those details yet, but we want to get as much of that funding as possible through grants and things like that. So I'm going to stop sharing this so I can get you guys all back. And I want to open this to questions, because that's the real important stuff. I can spew a lot of information that I have and know, but I want to know what you guys want to know about our trails and things like that. So,
So if anyone has a question, ask that you raise your hand, and when we call on you to unmute yourself. I saw Kelly, yours went up right away.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Very, very interesting. So when I've rode my bike out to the Mahaffey Bridge Trail, do you ever see that connecting with the Hoover Trail, like so to get from North Liberty to Solon?
Great question, Kelly. Thank you. Yes, one of our biggest obstacles at that point is as soon as you cross the Mahaffey Bridge and you turn into the Sugar Bottom Recreation Area, if you'll notice, there's a lot of limestone that comes right out to the edge of the highway. Fortunately, unfortunately, I guess both, that is a state preserve. So that stone, I can't just go in there and be like a quarry and start blowing up rock and build myself a trail. So there's been a lot of discussion. There's been discussion about even going a really long way and following the shore of the Corville Reservoir, going across Lake McBride Dam, and then coming in the back way to Solon. But you know, that I think that will happen at some time. It may be really close to the road, like you saw the one section we had between North Liberty and the bridge, but these are expensive, and so that one hasn't gotten to the top of the list yet, but I suspect it will at some point.
Great, thank you.
Yes.
Great. Ryan, you had a question?
Yeah, I'm curious, like, what is the process when you deal with landowners in, you know, providing those easements across their land? Do you purchase that land, and do they look at it as sort of an improvement on their property, or do they fight with you and say, no, we don't want, you know, cyclists riding by?
So that's a great question, Ryan. It's very, I would say it's very selective from owner to owner, depending on what you're using the land for. So, you know, developers and homeowners in large, you know, clusters of homes, they seem to like the trails because it adds an extra amenity that you can go out and utilize as a homeowner. If you're a very private homeowner or a farmer or say a utility company, sometimes they have, you know, if you're a private person, you just don't want people around you. So they may not be as interested in it. If you're a farmer and you've converted maybe an old rail bed back to agricultural purposes, sometimes that investment you've already made doesn't make sense for them to sell that corridor back, but they may be willing to give us marginal ground on the edge of a crop field, or, you know, give us 10 feet so we can utilize the road right of way, but have a little bit more space. So we have some buffers on each side. So it's very specific to the landowner. And so we take each case on a case-by-case basis. One of the biggest things, I'm an old farm kid myself, and we've got some realtors, I saw Vern in there somewhere. One of the biggest things that I like to do as you know, somebody that's working, I want to listen to the landowner's perspective, right? I'm going to respect their property rights. And what do you want to see? And if we can't make it work here, you know, if you've lived on this land for a lot longer than I've probably been around, what alternative options do you see for us? Because a lot of times we know the trail is going to go through. It's just how and when. Does that make sense?
Gary, you had a question?
Yeah, this is all great stuff, Brad. I appreciate it. My question is, this is county related, right? And that being the case, how do you interact with other trail systems? And specifically what I'm curious about is, I call it the Clear Creek Trail. I think I'm using the wrong name for it, that parallels Highway 6 and goes out toward Tiffin. And it of course, right now it's truncated by the construction of the I-80, 380. Whose is that? Who takes care of that? And what do you have any idea the projections for when that's going to be completed?
Yeah, I got bad news for you, Gary. 2024, 2025. So yes, we all do. You know, it's kind of it's like football coaches in the Big Ten. They all know each other, right? And we communicate, but we all run our own programs. So, you know, we know the entities. I work with the MPO of Johnson, the Metropolitan Planning Authority or Organization of Johnson County, Kent Ralston and his whole team. We know the people at the Eastern Iowa Council of Government out of Cedar Rapids that does rural Johnson County. They help us coordinate some things. We have trail advisory committees that are staff related because we want continuity. As taxpayers, as trail users, you guys really don't care, in my opinion, and at least I don't care, who's the authority there. I just want continuity and I want to be able to enjoy my ride. And so it's our job to work together. That Clear Creek Trail, and you are using the correct term. We have the city of Coralville has a section of it. The city of Tiffin has a section of it. Johnson County will have a large section of it. Eventually, we hope Oxford and Iowa County and the Manas all have a section of it. And so we have to work together to make sure the signage is contiguous throughout. So in one section, you're not seeing yield signs. The next section, you're seeing stop signs. You go, what's the difference? This is the same intersection. And so we try to see that continuity through. And then we also try to piggyback off each other for funding and for getting to a destination, right? A trail is only as good as where it takes you to. If it just dead ends in nowhere, that's horrible. So we want to get to a destination. And so, you know, you'll see a lot of our rural trails are going from community to community, and we're connecting with their trail systems that they may have interior. Obviously, Solon's, you know, got a much smaller trail system than Iowa City has, but we work with the Parks and Rec departments in all those communities to try to take their biggest trails and piggyback on them and lead them to somewhere else.
Thank you, Brad. That's very thorough, very
Thank you.
depressingly thorough, if I might say, in relation to that particular part of the trail, but thank you.
I try to be.
And Brad, we had a couple of questions that people typed in the chat. The first one from Jerry Wadalove, and I think you might have covered part of this with your first one, but will there be a trail connection between North Liberty from Mahaffey Bridge to Solon soon? And I think you touched on that with the first.
So I don't think, I will say this, I don't think it's going to be soon. So priorities ahead of that. If anybody's been out to the Wildwood or Herbert Hoover Highway, you can see the Iowa DOT is redoing that bridge. They're going to add more roundabouts for us all. And so they're going to be a roundabout out there, but they're also going to put a separated bike trail on that. And so there's a mile between Iowa City, basically the Rochester Avenue. There's a trail that comes out to the end of city limits. We would pick up there, and then there's another 5 to 6 miles to the West Branch High School, where the trail in Cedar County ends. So if you drive out that way, the road is being redone. If you're really looking at the scenery, you'll notice there's a really flat spot on the south side of the road. Well, we do that because it's much cheaper for us to, when they're doing that dirt work, to just say, hey, leave a flat spot. Conservation is going to come through here later and lay a trail down there. And so that one's probably going to get bumped up just because it's a little further along in the process. And then obviously the rail to trail between Solon and West Branch is very popular because it's an existing corridor. We just have some legal work to do to clean up that mess from late 1800s, right? No, nothing but time. So we just got to get that fixed. And then obviously we want to get to the Amana Colonies because it's one of the largest. If we can go from West Branch and the Herbert Hoover Highway all the way back through Iowa City to Kent Park, why not get to the other largest tourist site in the state of Iowa, the Amana Colonies? And if this isn't a destination that people want to come to, I don't know what we can create. Go bike for the day and then pick up a Hawkeye football game, right? That's the life. This is heaven.
And Brad, another question we had in chat from our member, Chris Catney. Are there any emergency call boxes along any parts of these trails?
We do not have any emergency call boxes. So you guys would be shocked, but people like to vandalize stuff when you put it out there. So we find most cyclists nowadays have cell phones. And so it's much easier for them to do cell phones. The one thing that we've thrown around, there are if you go to different trail systems in the state of Iowa, there is emergency signing. There's a national grid network that we've attempted to establish in some locations. We haven't adopted it here in Johnson County because people still don't understand it. It's a grid network we use for search and rescue that's very popular with emergency management staff, but the general public doesn't quite grasp it yet. And I haven't convinced everybody that that's something we need to put a sign every mile. If it's not going to be utilized correctly, they think that's not a wise investment. And in the great state of Iowa, we seem to have a road every mile anyway. So what intersection did you just pass? Right back to it. And most of our trails are very close to roadways or communities. And so we haven't gotten to that point yet. A good question.
Yeah, and Brad, I've got a question for you. Kind of in your years of experience working with parks and resources and trails, what are maybe some hidden gems out there with trails and parks that don't get a lot of publicity, but they're definitely ones that we should check out with our family or friends?
Well, some of the big ones that we're really investing some time in and doing some things with, we've got a large complex at the Sutliff Bridge. The old historic Sutliff Bridge. We have close to 500 acres of restored wetlands and prairies up there. We'll actually be building a new restroom on the west side of the Sutliff Bridge. So there are some venues on the east side, if you've ever been up there, and some people like to enjoy in the summer months. And so you can utilize the bridge as well as this 500 acres to go out and explore. We've also just recently acquired the Schwab Burford property. So Dick Schwab, when he moved to Wisconsin, he wanted to leave a legacy. That property is now called Chongaleska Wakan, which is a Native American term meaning circle of life, or sacred hoop, circle of life type of philosophy. That's got a lot of, they're trails, but they're not hard surface trails. So there are a lot of exploratory stuff. And the nice thing about those things is that you can kind of get away from things. Even the hard surface trails, we hit trail development in Johnson County just about right because this COVID medical issue, our trail saw usage went up nearly to 300% over what it was because gyms were closed. People couldn't socialize in restaurants and bars. So they were coming out and they were sitting at picnic tables, 10 feet across. So you walk on that side of the trail, I'll walk on this side. They could socialize, they could get their exercise, and they could get away from the news and all the bad stuff like, hey, COVID sucks. And so they got out on the trails, and we want to continue that and continue to do that, but offer more opportunities.
Great. And Brad, we had one final question pop in chat from our member, Mike Carberry. The next conservation bond, the status of the existing bond and plans for the next conservation bond.
Yeah, so remember that 20 million I told you about, and then you guys saw how much these trails cost, right? And we only used a small portion of that conservation bond on trails, and so a lot of it went to other things. But we put in $20 million, and we've gotten over $40 million worth of projects. So the next one is coming very quickly to a scene near you. So we're just about out. We've got a few projects in the hopper, including that Clear Creek Trail project. But we hope in the next 2 to 3 years, we're going to be preparing to have another conservation bond and bring that back. The great thing about doing it the second time is you guys, hopefully, depending on it, how much we ask, you're already being taxed for that $20 million, right? So if we just keep it at $20 million, you won't even notice any change, right? At least that's the plan. So when we did it in 2008, we told people it would cost them basically the amount for a loaf of bread a month. So it wasn't very expensive, so that's what we hope. We continue to grow as a community with Tiffin and North Liberty and Solon. All of our communities are growing. And so if we spread that out and we just throw the extra change from our taxes into this pot, we can do some really great things and make this a place where people want to come to work, to go to school, to raise a family, because that's why we're all here. And we want to share that with the rest of the state of Iowa. If you look at us, we're one of the few growing counties out there. Everybody else is drying up. Why? because we're investing in our communities and we're making them better. And Rotary, you do that too. So thank you.
Great. Yeah, thank you, Brad. I think it's easy to invest in the outdoors. So I think you'll have a lot of supporters on this call, and want to thank you for your interesting program and sharing this information with us. And Brad, in honor of our speakers every week, we'll make a donation to the Rotary Polio Plus program. That is matched 2-to-1 by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And that'll result in 70 polio vaccinations around the world in your honor. So thank you for being with us and spending time with us today.
Thank you for the donation. That's a great cause. I appreciate it.
Great. And final reminders, looking forward into this fall, we do have some open weeks that we're looking to recruit some speakers for. So if you know someone who might have an interesting or inspirational program, a new project or someone making news in our community, let Devin or myself know, and we'll look at possibly getting them on the agenda this fall. And with that, it was great to see everyone today. We like to end our meetings with the Rotary 4-way test. And Devin's going to put that up on the screen. Look how quick that came up here. So if everyone could please unmute yourself and join me in the Rotary 4-way test of the things we think, say, or do.
Is it the truth?
Is it fair to all concerned?
Build goodwill and better friendships.
Be
beneficial
to all concerned. Hope everyone has a great week. Go Hawkeyes, and we'll see you guys next Thursday. So thanks, guys.